Regret Mosque, and I was informing you about the significance of hexagon as a symbol of creation. Since hexagon is based upon 6 directions, number 6, and in the first lecture I explained symbolism of the numbers. You can check the table I shared in the first lecture and have a more profound understanding what I mean. There is a saying by Yunus Emre, well-known poet and mystic of 13th century Anatolia. He says, Şeyh cihetten ben çıkam, biten olam, bican olam. This is a line from one of his poems. And it is difficult to translate, but I can give you a summary of this. Let me go out of 6 directions, he says. Let me be a separate a body. This is very interesting. Biten olam, 10. Can we translate it as body? 10. It is literal translation is skin, but he doesn't mean skin. Let me a body, let me, and we should look, of course, for the meaning of 10 in 13th century Anatolia. It is a different research, of course. But, you know, a very rough translation is as such. Let me a body, let me a separate John. Can we translate John as separate? I don't even know this. I'm really rough is translating this. But the idea here is more important than for me than the words. What Yunus Emre would like to say is more important than the specific details. Altogether, Yunus Emre has an attitude almost against 6 directions. Let me go out of 6 directions. What does he mean? Is there anybody who would tell me anything about this? This is a very important point, and I would like to hear voice of the students if they have anything to say on this. Why should a mystic of 13th century Anatolia would like to go out of 6 directions? Şeyh cihetten. And what is 6 directions? Actually, what is 6 directions? Huh? Nobody? Okay, let me go on with my explanation. Actually, I told you that Earth, habitable Earth, this zone we live in, delimited by 4 directions, north, south, east, west, and these are cardinal, and we have intermediate directions, north, south, northeast, northwest, and so forth. In addition to these 4 directions, we have 2 more directions, heavens and earth. At number 6, better gives the space that we inhabit. The vertical dimension this way is introduced. 4 directions introduce us horizontal expansion, horizontal dimension. 6 directions introduce more to that. A space concept, the vertical dimension. Then altogether, 6 dimensions is a symbol of space, the zone we inhabit. This is the universe created by God. We have microcosmic and macrocosmic dimensions. Microcosmic dimension is the milieu, the place, the land, the house we inhabit. This is the domain around us, microcosmos. Macrocosmos is the greater universe. This is the greater universe. Alemül Kebir, they say in Arabic. Great universe, macrocosmos. It is also created. It is also created by God. Then God, while creating the universe, introduced a single entity. But we human beings differentiate micro and macro levels because micro level is the universe we live in, macro level is the universe we think about. What about God? Where is He? He is beyond. He is beyond these two notions. In Alemul Gaib, in the hidden universe, Alemul Gaib. Alem Shahada is the universe we can witness, we can see, we can speak of. This is an interesting situation. Here we have then number six, in a way, give us 6 directions and indirectly space itself. But why Yunus Emre would like to go out of space? Go out of space. Because medieval mystics, Islamic mystics, taught that this is a prison. We are given birth by our mother without our permission. We are thrown in a world. This is darkness. We came from light, the domain of light. We came from a divine realm, probably. But we are thrown to this world. We need to go back. We need to go back to the domain of light. Refrain ourselves from the restrictions of the space. Space is a prison where we are thrown. Then he says, Şeyh Cihet'ten ben çıkam. Let me go out of this for 6 directions. Let me free from space, restrictions of space. Let me be independent. Salvation is there beyond space. This is a great idea, and it is a universal idea. Maybe you heard of Nirvana, the Nirvana concept of the Buddhists. I mean, salvation, independence is provided in freeing yourself from the restrictions of the body. Because body also contains 6 directions. When you extend your arms, like Vitruvian Man of Leonardo da Vinci, you have 4 directions: north, south, east, west. Up is the heavens, your feet is the earth. Now you are a cosmic axis collecting on your body every detail of this cosmos, 6 directions, and space. Our body is a space altogether, it's a microcosmos. And Yunus Emre also would like to go out of the body, but he says, Biten olam. Biten olam. This is a 10, a different kind of 10, different kind of body, a separate. Bijan olam. Jan also is not the Jan we have in our mind. It is a different kind of dimension. We should really find correspondence of these words in English. Maybe among you there is somebody who has an interest in translation and in poems and would help us and introduce us with the proper words and write in the chat. Okay, then on the portal of Divri Great Mosque, we have the symbol of space, architectural space, unbelievable, hidden, just a part of it demonstrated as a message to the audience, to the visitors. Come and think about the enigma of this symbol. What does it mean? What does it say? What is in the background of it? What kind of, can I say, system is here in my design? This is what architect says. Otherwise, you cannot find a reason why this part of the composition is demonstrated. Because when you look at it, you don't really say anything about what exists there without putting it on the paper. Yeah. And also, let me tell you that around this decoration, we have the stick-like figures, which is a symbol of rotating sun, swastika, we call it, swastika. Well, maybe you are familiar with the famous symbol of Nazism, Nazism, swastika. But it is an ancient symbol. Nazis took it in the 20th century. It has nothing to say, nothing to do with Nazism or any other ideology of 20th century. It's an ancient motif. It is a symbol of rotating sun. Rotating sun. Where is rotating sun? In heavens. Sun rotates and gives us this circle of life, wheel of fortune, circle of life, wheel of life altogether, circulating this essentially concept of space. Then space and time are associated in this decorative, in this composition. Unbelievably rich, that says us essentials of medieval symbolism, architectural symbolism. And there are so many dimensions that I can speak of. For example, secretary, secretary composition on the two sides, symbols of the limit. Sidratul Muntaha, they say in the Quran, the tree of the limit. When you go to the limit of the space, you face with a tree. This tree is at the limit, at the border. Beyond the border is divine. Then everything passes at the border. This is a curtain. You should pass through it in order to be illuminated, enlightened. The idea of enlightenment, illumination, basically is central in this symbolic composition. Beyond the space is light, but true light. The sun we have here is a copy. It's a mirror reflecting the true light. True light is divine, God, which is beyond. When you enter the mosque, you face with a mihrab, with the same symbols. It's another stage, another curtain. The building says to you that when you enter me, don't pretend that you are in heavens. Now another curtain is across you. This is the mihrab, another gate, another passage. You should pass through it. Prayers, respect, veneration are the keys. You should pass through it and reach to Kaaba, spiritually, of course. Kaaba is another gate, another hexagon. It's six-sided. You should pass through it. Vertical access is possible and go beyond the restrictions of this world. This is a great symbolism, not only related with space as a freezed room, but also incorporates time, because it is a part of a circular time course, a movement in the universe, which is represented by the movements of the stars and planets altogether, the heavens around the earth, circumambulating, and a practice in relation to that. What is practice? Praying, a prayer, use of the architectural space altogether is dominated by a series of rules that penetrate to everyday life. And these series of rules are directly connected with this concept of universe, cosmology. Practice is directly related to a cosmology. And this cosmology is based upon observation of nature. It is scientific. It's scientific with the standards of medieval age. This is the reason why in the medieval period, they did not make the difference between science, bilim, we say today, and ilim, science again. We have these two words today because one is Arabic, ilim. The other is Turkish, bilim. Ilim, bilim. We have this confusing, duality, but actually in medieval age, they did not make this differentiation. Ilim spread to the entire realm of knowledge based upon nature, observation, and religious practice was closely related to that. Then there was only one science. I hope I have been able to explain you basics of this symbolism. Now let me show you a very interesting painting from 13th century Europe, from a Bible. Christians received their prophet as a divine being, son of God, and sometimes God is represented in the anthropomorphic form of Christ. Christ represents God on earth. He is the Son of God, and in this representation, you see Christ, but indirectly God, essentially Christ, and Christ giving form to the chaotic universe, creating universe by means of geometrical tools. And in this act, God introduces cosmos to chaos by means of geometry. By means of geometry. This is the idea. Then, and now I suppose after this visual evidence of what I mean, you can understand why geometry is sacred in medieval age, almost sacred, because order is introduced by means of geometry in this understanding. And geometry symbolizes order or organic, chaotic entities are organized by geometry. And this is human reason, human mind that imitates the act of God in introducing geometry to nature. But there is something conflicting in this idea. If there is already order in the universe, in nature, why should human beings introduce another order, creating a kind of cosmos? But let me tell you that this cosmos is artificial. It is not real cosmos. Human beings can only imitate, can copy the order introduced in the universe, a part of it. Then this is the microcosmos. The reason why we call it microcosmos, because it is a copy of the macrocosmos. It is not real. It is a shadow of the real order in the universe. Cosmos. Then microcosmos is a domain controlled by humankind, or house, or palaces, or university buildings, madrasa in medieval, everything they created were microcosmic realms in which order of the universe copied. Then design is an act of copying the order in the universe, in this understanding. For medieval men, everything was in place. There is no suspicion. There is no suspicion. If you, from the beginning, present yourself as a copy, as a shadow, and be in a position, I might say, inferior, and base your reasoning upon that, no. Suspicion fades. Because if you begin as a reasonable man, as a man with reason, with the faculties to change and believe in that, then you start to suspect. You start to suspect. But when you start as a human being, regarding yourself, a copy, something with a mission to venerate gods, then suspicion fades. This is another aspect of comparison, medieval and modern understandings of human reasoning. Here we have further symbols. For example, the double-headed eagle. Now, double-headed eagle is the symbol of power of God. Let's say, his strength to impose order. This is Farah in Persian. This is Sultan in Arabic. And Sultan is also given as a title to the ruler, Muslim ruler, and Sultan is symbolized by double-headed eagle, which is a very ancient symbol of sun gods in Mesopotamia. Double-headed because two heads give us essentially east and west directions, and also double-headed because sun is beneficiary in spring, but malevolent in winter and summer. Then sun god had a dual nature. One is good, one is bad. Then it is double-headed eagle. And a king, a sultan, should be a warrior in times of conflict and a peace-giving body, person in times of peace. Then this duality in the universe, some, the darkness, illumination, wet and dry, and many others, is symbolized by the double-headed eagle. Double-headed eagle is also, as I told you, is the symbol of power of God. But initially, the story started with polytheistic period of Mesopotamia, when sun gods was regarded as primary gods, and the solar symbolism attached incorporated double-headed eagle as the most convenient symbol. And you can see this by means of this device on the body, a sun circle. Do you see it? Sun circle, which essentially gives us this nature of the eagle. He is associated with the sun circle. Sun circle is also a sun gate, the gate. Sun is a gate. Sun is not true sun. Sun is a gate. You pass through it and reach to the divine, real sun. Then gates, cosmic gates, had the borders associated with the sun. Portal is a sun. Mihrab is a sun. You pass through it. You pass through it to reach to God at the back. Then eagles are always placed on gates, on portals, on ivans, or on windows, apertures, openings. These are the places you can pass through. You can free yourself from the restrictions of space. Find a shelter, be it interior space, be it the domain beyond the universe, because interior space is microcosmos, a symbol of this greater universe. And also, let me tell you that the eagle is above a platform. Bakın, look at it, a platform. A platform. This platform is a symbol of the cosmic mountain. The cosmic mountain. This cosmic mountain is thought to be around the habitable Earth by ancient man, Neolithic periods, very old idea, then developed in the urban milieus of the Middle East, this cosmic mountain. And there are gates on the cosmic mountain, and on these gates is the double-headed eagle as a symbol of the sun gate. Let me try to. Okay, I was trying to calm my cat in the room, speaking it away. Meow, meow, meow. Okay, let me go on. The eagle, associated with this idea of gate, and gates also exist on the mountains. Every morning, sun enters our world from the gates in the mountains and goes out, then this idea of a cosmic mountain became established, and mythological mountains like Sumeru, like Kaf Mountain, penetrated in medieval understanding of cosmology. And in this symbol, you can also see it summarized as a platform, or which is the eagle. This eagle, also named Simurgh in medieval literature. You can go to libraries, you can go to internet and check what is Simurgh. Simurgh is a creature, is a composite animal, basically a bird that lives in the east, beyond the mountains. And there are texts, Sufi texts, in which travel of the mystics are narrated, and trying to find their god, symbolized by Simurgh. Whenever this is famous Attar's story, when birds, mystics find their god, they understand that it's a mirror reflecting themselves, and God is in themselves. This is a great idea. This is the great idea, initiator of the philosophy we name Wahdet al-Vujud, yani the unity of beings. God is in ourselves. This is the great idea of Sufism. And in that narrative, Simurgh symbolizes not maybe God himself, but a mirror, the actual sun we see, which reflects. Then you become a mirror. If you struggle, you can become a mirror reflecting the sun, the true sun, metaphysical sun. But why on the gate? Because gate is a Kaf mountain. You reach. Gate is a passageway you pass through and become a mirror. There is a great symbolism and meanings attached to every detail. Then let me repeat my motto. Architectural decoration in medieval age is not to decorate. It is to attach meaning. Or even this is not a true definition of it. I mean, decoration and architecture, designs worked together. You cannot separate them. Both is a part of this total understanding of microcosmos. It's a kind of shaping of microcosmos together with appropriate forms and symbols, because an architectural form also is a symbol, an icon, a portal. It is a decorative element when you look from this perspective. Then it is nonsense to separate decoration and architecture in terms of medieval architecture. Then I don't understand when law says decoration is crime kind of things in 19th century. It is somebody who doesn't know anything about the meaning of decoration. And this is the reason why they just refuse decoration from modern architecture. And there are many other reasons, of course, for the technology, mass production, and so forth. These are not my issues here, but let me tell you that I don't understand when somebody says decoration is crime or decoration is useless and so forth, kind of. If you put decoration in the context and try to attach meaning to the space with its presence, decoration is not a crime. On the contrary, decoration is nice, and decoration is very nice, in my opinion. It is up to you how to use it. Anyway, and Muqarnas above the double-headed eagle with 7 levels. Muqarnas essentially gives us the concept of 7 heavens, and this togetherness of the Muqarnas and the double-headed eagle altogether gives us essentially this notion of microcosmos. Even the decoration itself is a microcosmos from this perspective. We have a space, we have the dome, Muqarnas dome, we have the double-headed eagle attached to the dome, this notion of passageway, of transition on the vertical axis altogether. And you can say that portal and decorative details are two-dimensional spaces. Microcosmic domains are represented in detail. In this case, for example, the secretary itself is a symbol of cosmos. Secretary, the axis with the, with the foliage is itself a microcosmic domain because essentially it gives us different stages of the microcosmos and macrocosmos altogether, of course, as a reflection of it. And in detail, every form is a microcosmos attached to a greater design. From this viewpoint, then you can get an understanding of a modular system, From the minute detail to the greater design, there is a modular system. This is the idea. Renaissance later just based its ideology, its philosophy upon these findings of humankind in medieval age and before. And Renaissance is really a Renaissance. It is just Renaissance, yani. Birth, rebirth. It is the same with the previous ages. A bit more artificial because of the changing world. I mean, and the barriers put between humankind and nature due to the developing agencies, developing urban environments, introduction of new materials, and this accelerated in time up to the 20th century. This distance between nature and humankind accelerated, enlarged, became greater, and we have lost our connections with nature. Or attempts to discover nature in vernacular surveys in ecological design initiatives could never be as authentic, as indigenous as before. This is really disappointing. Here we have then a nice Assyrian low relief where we have the secretary with the winged sun disk, God Assur. The symbolism of this winged sun disk, look at this disk here, and this is not different. You would ask me, Hajam, how these symbols survived thousands of years, because this is from 7th century BC, this is from 13th century. Almost 2 millennia passed, and symbols survive. Symbols survive? my reply is so simple, symbols survived. We shouldn't find an explanation for every detail. The hidden art of the designer, hidden art of the designer, esotericism, and so forth. I mean, altogether carried these concepts and symbols up to the modern age. Başka bir şey daha vardı. Bakın, dragons. They are as if attacking the ego, but the main idea here is not to create a composition of opposing forces in the universe. İşte fight of good and evil, contrast between black and white. No, the composition here greatly aims to reconcile, to unite, to bring together, and accept the realities of universe within this composition. And in the 13th century Anatolia, we have a philosophy. Mevlana, Celaleddin Rumi, Yunus Emre, Hacı Bektaş Veli, Ibn al-Arabi, Sadruddin Konevi are the representatives of this philosophy. We name it Vahdet al-Vücud, yani unity of beings. We, human beings, and every material being in the universe are united. This is the main idea. You can check what is it. And this understanding of unity is represented symbols like this: unity, reconciliation, harmony of contrasts, of differences. When you look at this portal, you discover that there is a symmetry, there's a symmetry between the motifs in the composition. But when you look at the details, the way carvers created motifs within these great motifs, you understand that there is a deliberate asymmetry introduced in this general composition of symmetry. As I told you before, this is microcosmos, macrocosmos difference, basically, and also the way to bring them together, to unite them, as I explained, with these philosophical tendencies of the 13th century. Okay. Yeah, you can check internet, academia, for my papers on these topics. I extensively published on these topics in English and in Turkish. And academia, you can find my papers if you are interested. I published a last study on Seljuk architecture. It is in Turkish, 1 and 4. I mean, Turkish architecture, I'm sorry, Seljuk architecture. Actually, this is one paper, but I don't know why others divided it into four sections. And then we have 4 different sections. It looks like 4 sections, but it's a one paper. There you can find information on Seljuk architecture and architectural symbolism attached to Seljuk architecture by myself, and read it. And also I published in English Divriği Great Mosque Symbolism. You can also read this paper in English by myself. Let me stop sharing and look at the time and the number of the students. 106. That's okay. But there is a possibility to go back to the video recordings, and it is always useful because these are the concepts you for the first time hear. I am almost sure of this. It's better to go back to the video and once more watch this video in order to understand fully what I mean to say. And then you can ask me questions if you like next week. It is almost 10:30.
Okay.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. I was checking the slides while you were away. Here they are. I would like to go on with the Divriği Great Mosque architectural design. This zone, a central nave-like corridor with a maxillary dome and star vaults. A lantern dome exists on the main corridor. Here you can see it, lantern dome. Fener kubbe with a pool. Once upon a time, there was a pool underneath the dome. This is the eastern entrance, which was used by the Emir Ahmed Shah. Most inconspicuous entrance gate is that. This gate was added in the 14th century to the western facade. By 14th century, we analyzed, scholars, not me, scholars analyzed the techniques employed in the decoration and reached to the conclusion that it is a Beylik late example, 14th century. And but the double-headed eagles on the right and left are not. They were existing and reused probably, or just this section changed. We don't really know. But what we know is that the western zone, western side of the mosque demolished during an earthquake and rebuilt. This is the reason those vaults are not original. The original vaults are here in this section. Original walls, panos in Turkish, contain star patterns, but basically develop on mandala, 4 directions, and center. At the center, in this case, we have a mukarnas decoration. It is like stalactites coming from up to down, create a cosmic axis to collect the spirits up to the heavens and let them go down. Then there's a channel of communication, like a tent in a, like a pole in a tent. Here we have another mandala with sun gates. At this time, we have a lotus flower at the center. That reminds lotus of Indian art. And at the center, it's a symbol of nirvana. It's a symbol of salvation. Here we have a gate this time, a sun gate. Here we have, this time, swastikas inserted. All these symbols are either solar symbols or symbols of the directions, center, gate, cosmological symbols attached to the different walls of the building. There was a living ancient culture here. This ancient culture established a world of symbols and motifs, and these continued in medieval age in Seljuk art and architecture. Seljuk architecture is a platform where these were most freely, independently expressed due to the nature of the Seljuk donors, the identity of the Seljuk donors, who regarded themselves as promoters of culture in the lands they governed, and they established a rule in a way letting individuals be, I don't want to use modern terminologies, independent also, but be more unrestricted and define themselves by means of art. And Master craftsmen traveled from one part of the Silk Road to the other. I mean, from Afghanistan, India to Iran, from Iran to Anatolia, all the way on the Silk Road, ideas exchanged. I mean, this richness in the decorative motifs and cosmological schemes can only be explained by the trade network established by the Seljuks in Anatolia, because with the Seljuks, the gates of Anatolia opened to east, to Iran, to Central Asia. Continuous turmoil between Byzantines and Iran or Iranians. I mean, in earlier Zoroastrian, Manichaean, later Muslim Iranians and Byzantines obstructed channels of communication with East, and Byzantine Empire concentrated on Eastern Mediterranean. It was a branch of ancient Roman civilization. But with the Seljuks arriving from East, the richness of the Silk Roads, connections with Central Asia, Iran, indirectly India and China, started to penetrate to Anatolia. This is the reason of this greatness in art and design, since now communication networks are better provided with the Eastern world, where in the 10th and 11th century, a renaissance occurred in Central Asia and Iran. A renaissance occurred, and this spread with the Seljuks to West. West at that time was in decline. Then, following this Seljuk arrival, Gothic appeared in the 13th century, in a way as a continuation of this Oriental Enlightenment, and then led to Renaissance in Italy. I mean, civilization is a race. I mean, you just take the flag from the earlier or from another geography and then send this flag to another. I mean, bayrak yarışı we say in Turkish, flag race. kind of thing, and civilization shifts, it moves from one part of the world to the other. With civilization, I mean knowledge, accumulation of knowledge. I don't mean a civilization higher, a civilization more, how can I say, superior. I mean technology and knowledge and science. It shifts, it moves in the world, and these movements can be detected, with the movement of societies, of the people. And Seljuk case is as such. It brought knowledge from East, from Iran, from Central Asia, from Arabic world, from Iraq and Syria as well, because earlier in the 8th and 9th centuries, this part of the world, especially Baghdad, were centers of wisdom, knowledge. From there, it shifted to Iran and Central Asia. From Iran to Central Asia, it shifted to Anatolia. From Anatolia to Balkans with the Ottomans, then Italy. At the end, northern countries, then we have England and France, followed by America. Today, it is shifting maybe back to the Orient. Who knows, huh? We should check. Here we have the interior of the mosque. The central part, a view of the mihrab across us, higher and larger central part reminds what? Basilica, Anatolian basilica, değil mi? Basilica. But with this concept of hypostyle, columned hall, with this concept of inner courtyard in Iran, inner courtyard with ivans around, innovations introduced to basilica. Now basilica innovated. Seljuk Mosque is a basilica innovated, a basilica advanced, turned into a different kind of building. Then Seljuk Mosque is a new building based upon the older inventions, of course. And technology, stone craftsmanship. It is a Caucasian tradition in Sivas, Caucasian, Armenia, Georgia, northeastern Anatolia. In the background of all is Roman architecture, of course. Then it is Anatolian, certainly. Stone craftsmanship is Anatolian, and it is a kind of encounter between brick technologies of Iran and Anatolian stone technologies, and these walls can only be explained by this innovative approach to local stone craftsmanship technologies. I mean, because of the decorative details and decorative program imposed altogether. And Seljuks created new vault types, star vault. A retired professor, Ayşıl Yavuz, is a specialist of this, and she published a number of papers on this. You can read if you like. And she says that Seljuk architecture invented star vaults, and these are original. They used ancient and older technologies and styles in vault construction, but also added to this collection new vault forms, vault types. She names them star vaults. You can see them in Dobry Great Mosque. A great portal, greatest of all in Anatolia. In the slide, you see the lantern dome with the walls around. This is a great portal. A portal itself is like a passageway, değil mi? As if there are gates within gates and a central point. Ne deniyor buna? A tunnel of gates. There is something that this building says to you. And one of the things is that you need to pass through this. You need to go beyond that. Be closer to divinity. This is another gate then. This is another portal then. Another stage then. You face on the vertical axis. On the horizontal axis, you have another one at the top. Then, basically, a mosque is designed after two axes. One is vertical, the other is horizontal. These are the basics of mosque architecture in medieval age. And If you take notes or borrow notes from your friends, they will be useful, in my opinion, in your future career. If you become architects, one day in the future, somebody would come to you and ask a mosque design. Why not? And these will be useful, I'm sure. Here we have then mosque types in Anatolia. One is the Kiosk Masjid of Iran, directly brought from Iran and applied in Anatolia. Akşehir Güdük Minare Masjid. This is the only example I give. Akşehir Güdük Minare Masjid is the example of Kiosk Masjid. Hypostyle, typical Pan-Arabic hypostyle, Konya Latin interior. Hypostyle with a dome accent. If you add a dome like Isfahan, Great Mosque, you obtain this type, Hunat Hatun Mosque. Basilica or Stedel Mosque, Kale Camisi we call. It is a typical basilica without much change. Sorry to say this. No, with change, of course, with change, because it's more enclosed. And the outlook of the building entirely changed. You know, the number of the aisles differed, and many other changes introduced. Unfortunately, even a very, very basilica-like building, much basilica-like building is not a true basilica. This is to people who would like to find basilica in Seljuk architecture. Yes, there is a basilica, but innovated, changed, transformed. Wooden pillared mosque. Inside, here we have a great building tradition from Central Asia, directly imported from Central Asia, wooden columned mosques, and applied in Anatolia. Beyşehir is a good example. Now I would like to tell a bit about, not a bit, tell on or speak on Madrasa Han Palace, Tomb and Baths in Seljuk architecture. Some of them briefly, some others more comprehensively. Divri Great Mosque Madrasa section is a good case, Madrasa section. This section functioned as a Dar Shifa. Dar Shifa means house of healing. But healing in medieval understanding is not the same we understand from healing today, you know, healing, iyileştirme. Healing is not only a bodily healing, but spiritual healing. Now, spiritual healing incorporates education, incorporates training in different sciences altogether. And Dar Shifa is a general name, but we know that in the Ottoman period, Dar Shifa only given to the hospitals, but in earlier Seljuk period, Dar Shifa would be a more general. Even in the case this is only a hospital, education was offered to the students. Medieval Islamic medical institutions not only offered healing, hospital function, but also education. It was in the status of a university, and physicians, nurses were educated. Even assistants, they even employed assistants in these Dar Shifa buildings for the first time in history of medicine. Assistants were employed. Anyway, here we have a enclosed madrasa. There are two types of madrasas: open with courtyard and enclosed, domed. This is a domed, enclosed madrasa. At the center, we have a lantern dome. Across us is an Ayvan. This is the Ayvan here. This is cross section. Here we have the plan. A wall separates mosque from the Dar Shifa. This wall is shared, as you can see. This wall is shared by the Dar Shifa and the mosque. Mosque founded by Ahmet Shah. Dar Shifa founded by Melike Turan. Melike Turan was wife of Ahmet Shah, but we don't know this. One of the relatives of Ahmet Shah. We know this for sure. Here we have the Melike Turan's Dar Shifa with a central Ayvan, lantern dome, entrance piece with a vestibule and portal. Then we have an enclosed madrasa. This axiality is striking. On this axiality, we have also a basilica kind of plan organization, central aisle-like corridor and side corridors, which look like aisles. But a nave-like central corridor and aisles. It looks like a basilica, but even beyond that, you can get an understanding of a transept basilica, a domed transept basilica. Değil mi? Further than this, you can have a Queen Six plan. Queen Six, yani cross and square, they say. Cross and square, Byzantine church plan. Then we have Transept Basilica, Queen Six, and Avon courtyard. We have 3 Avons. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This is the most successful building in Seljuk architecture, Divri Hospital, in which we have a great tradition of the Middle East, with almost entire cycle of monumental building plans incorporated within a single. I wish one day you would go there and experience this great building. I mean, unbelievably rich in terms of plan organization, decoration, and space concepts of the masterpieces. And it is now in the UNESCO list of World Heritage. We should really care this monument. There is a staircase which leads to an upper floor. It is 2-floored. And there is a mezzanine floor, yani asma kat in Turkish we say, mezzanine. You go through this staircase and reach to this room here, a vaulted rectangular room. Across it is another room and a central space, vaulted central space. You get the idea of 2 Ayvans overlooking a sofa. Typical feature of a Turkish house. Necdet Sakaoğlu, a historian, explains this as a divanhane, and meeting hall, a meeting room for majalis, yani for meclis. Why they needed this kind of a room? Because the palace of the emir is very close. On the top of the hill is the palace. Darüşşafaka is here, and emir even would easily see this mosque. We would easily reach to it, and in case when an important figure arrived to Divri, an intellectual, a royal person, he would be entertained in this Darüşşafaka. He would be a part of the meeting session of the educational, I don't know, sessions, philosophical conventions. I don't know. I mean, they probably entertained their guests in this divanhane at the 2nd floor. As usual, we have a multifunctional building from medieval age. On this section, the plan is not here, but just figure out that there is another floor here, up in the 2nd floor, above this Ayvan and rooms. We have a 2nd floor. Here we have a central sofa again and 2 rooms opening to it. Typical features of a Turkish house. We get the idea that this is the place where residential units existed. I mean, they stayed there. The guests stayed there. On the 1st floor, we have student cells. These student cells, for different purposes that are unknown to us, did they stay here? There are no fireplaces, and it's not possible. Professors maybe taught their students in these rooms, or other functional. I don't want to say attach a specific function, because we don't really know the real function of these spaces. One space is better to understand, is here between the mosque and the madrasa, and there is a great window which provides view of the room from the mosque and view of the mosque from the room. In this room, which is domed as such, is a turbe, is a tomb, where are sarcophagus on the floor, probably belonging to Ahmed Shah and Melike Turan. We don't really know the identity of the people buried. I wish in the past our grandfathers would give due importance, prominence to this architectural heritage and keep records of the buildings better than they did. Now maybe many points would be more known, understandable for us today. Unfortunately, they don't regard material world as durable. They lived for the afterlife. This is the reason they didn't care much architecture. It's the space copy of the realities. Here we have a view of the monument, Külliye mosque section and madrasa section from the palace of Ahmed Shah, from the top of the hill. Many buildings existed before around, demolished now. Darüşşafa entrance gate, it looks like a great Ivan, two-dimensional great Ivan. The central mullion is like a pole of a tent supporting the dome. As I told you, there is an image of a tent, and this image influenced master craftsman, and he designed a gate like this. Very different, very different. These rib-like pilasters are ornamentational. Open the arches, introduce kind of staged tunnel-like great arch that leads to the center. It is like skewed tent or ayvan. Değil mi? Gramofon mu derler ona? Böyle bastırırsın ya. Öyle olmuş sanki. Pressed like this. Okay. Here we have again symbols related to sun, solar symbols. Again, some plates giving us planets. It's a macrocosmic domain in microcosmic worlds. Here we have two human heads, which cannot be seen properly, but a lady's head with plaited hairs like this, and a male's head with a ring on his ear. Mengücek oğulları. Mengüç in medieval Turkish means ring, earring. Yani küpeli oğulları demek aslında. Mengücek. Probably Ahmed Shah himself represented here, and Melike Turan, but this is not my idea. Scholars advanced many different views, but more probable than this is that these are astrological symbols. Left male head is a symbol of Shams. Suratul Shams, yani face of sun, and Suratul Kamer, face of moon. These astronomical symbols were legitimate for medieval men, but this is a very important charity building and easily noticeable, and they couldn't put face of Ahmed Shah or Melike Turan on the portal. Simple reason. Okay, interior lantern dome with the Ivan and side Ivans, right and left. Corridors, I-like corridors at the back of these columns give us essentially a basilica plan. But as I told you, a crescent square, a basilica, a four-Ivan courtyard, altogether synthesized in the body of this monument. This nice device, this curling channel, symbolizes cosmic ocean, subterranean world waters. Actually, snake is the inspiration source. Snake. A snake might delve underneath the earth, come back like water. Then snake is a symbol of water in movements between sky and earth. This is a view from the Ayman towards the entrance piece. You can see the staircase leading to the mezzanine floor. Mezzanine floor extends over the vestibule and over the Ayman on the left. This is the window from the corridor leading to the rooms here, to the guest rooms. This is the window here you see, which is at the entrance piece in the portal. This is the window here. Light penetrates to the sofa, to the divanhana here, and divanhana, you can see it from inside. Pay attention to the stone craftsmanship. Bitti, süper. And Sinan, Mimar Sinan is from Cappadocia, close to Sivas, Central Anatolia, where stone craftsmanship is high and stone technology is high. He came from there to Istanbul. Another enclosed madrasa is Karatay Madrasa in Konya. In this case, we don't have columns supporting the dome. Dome directly sits up on the walls. There are pendentives. This variety is named fan pendentive or fan pendentive and yelpaze pendentive due to these triangles on it. Entrance is not on the same axis with the Ivan. It is shifted to the left. We don't know why. Probably in order to introduce rooms at this side as well. To have more rooms around the central courtyard, they shifted the gate to this section, created a domed vestibule here. And from this domed vestibule, you enter to this enclosed courtyard. Then we have rooms around a domed central part. And the Ayvan, single Ayvan, overlooking the courtyard. Sofa and Ayvan, typical of a Turkish house interior. Karatay Han was a prime minister, Sadrazam. On the two sides of the Ayvan, there are rooms, additional rooms. One probably was for the professor. The other used as a tomb. Great portal with swastika motifs, bakın swastikas, symbols of sun. And Zengit, Syrian motifs applied with a mukarnas. Pay attention, this is a innovative design here. It's not a copy of any other portal. It is original, one-time experience. Was credits for Karatay Madrasa. Rubble stone employed in the construction of this monument. And inside, the dome contains rosettes, 7 stages lead to the central sun gate, very similar to the dome in Alhambra Palace, Ambassador's Hall. It's the symbol of heavens. On the pendentives, you have the names of the prophets, not only single prophet of Islam, but Moses, even Christ. His name is inscribed here. Prominent prophets inscribed with their names, since these personalities are intermediary between God and people, and they are put in the appropriate spaces. Then we can say that in medieval Seljuk architecture, there is an iconography. Iconography means a program of icons, a program of symbols, motifs, like in a painting, Western painting, where we have some symbols alluding images, concepts. Here we have symbols alluding concepts. I don't want to go on with, with these concepts anymore. I have talked so much on them. I mean, you understand what I mean. Then these symbols are put in appropriate places, in due places. They are not haphazardly placed to ornament, to decorate. This is a nice wall. Let's put there a painting with the same color. You don't even care the content of the painting. I mean, anything more important than is the color and the motifs, which should be in relation to the design of the building. This is modern decorative approach. But in medieval age, they cared meanings, concepts, symbols. And basically, these concepts, these meanings influenced architectural design itself. The concepts shared, you know what I mean? They looked for the background philosophies. And these philosophies shared by designers of the building itself and by designers of the decorative program. This is the difference. There is a conscious involvement of decoration here. There, this inscription is from Quran, Ayat al-Kursi. It is about throne of God, as of the dome's prominent presence. This line is regarded appropriate. This is the domain that leads to God. Then throne of God is. It is not much different than having Christ Pantocrator on the dome of Hagia Sophia. Christ on the dome, carried by the angels, seraphim and cherubim on the pendant tiers. It is like the throne of, Christ carried by the angels. Interior of Hagia Sophia, pendant tiers with cherubim and seraphim, the angels carrying the throne of God. This is the image. Here we have a similar organization, but abstract, very abstract. Arabic inscription essentially gives us the idea of throne of God. Ayat al-Kursi, throne of God. You see how ancient symbols abstracted? Symbols even of Judaism and Christianity abstracted in Islamic art and architecture. It is magnificent. It is truly magnificent. Oh my God. Here we have then an interior view with the Ivan and side rooms. Again, we have a pool, nice pool. Ayat al-Kursi repeated on the walls. İnce Minareli Madrasa is also in Konya. It is also domed, enclosed. Difference is that we have the portal on the same axis with the Ivan. You see, the portal is on the same axis with the Ivan. And this mosque is also offers, this madrasa also offers a mosque, a small masjid, it's better to say. Here, there is a masjid attached. Why I put this slide? Rather than to talk on the architecture, because it's the same, almost same with Karatay, enclosed madrasa, domed with a single Ivan and so forth. Just to introduce you the portal. Look at it. It is also different. It's also innovative. No identical portal exists in Seljuk architecture. Master craftsmen tried to offer something new. In here, we have a great inscription panel, creating a knot at the center, going up to meet here at this bosom. On the right and left of the inscription, we have trees, abstract trees, or sun circles are there. Bakın. Whenever you see a sun circle, you should regard it as an abstract tree or abstract eagle, because eagle and tree were associated, and the concept eagle tree obtained. Kartal ağaç, the border, at the border, on the mountain. Kartal ağaç, eagle tree. You have the you have the sun circles, right and left, symmetrical. You have the tail of the eagle, kuyruğu. You have the two heads of the eagle. Let's see, two heads of the eagle. Actually, this is also a tree, basically pomegranate, I suppose, huh? Pomegranate tree with fruits on its branches. I should remind you, Samarra decoration, how abstracted are the motifs there, and tendencies that belong to Eurasia, nomadic tendencies to abstract. And in Anatolia, we have a continuation of this tradition, abstracting motifs that belong to ancient Mesopotamia by means of a new art approach introduced by people from north, Turks. This is the general name, Turks. Different ethnic groups existed among the Turks, like Circassians, many different groups, but we name them Turks in general. Then there's a Turkish inclination to abstract, introduced to the Middle East and continued in Seljuk art. Here we have the interior. In the dome, we have swastikas, differently done swastikas. But actually, solar symbolism is still the rotating dome. Rotating dome concept is there. Pendentive, a building in brick this time. The other one I just showed you, Karatay, was rubble stone, molos, taş, we say. Here in this example, we have brick. In Divri Great Mosque, remember, it was all in ashlar stone, kesme taş, ashlar. Ashlar, they say in English, yeah. Ashlar stone, kesme taş. In İnce Minareli here, it is brick. In Karatay, I have just shown you, it is in rubble stone. Then 3 varieties. 4 varieties, you see, the construction material. And Gök Medrese, one of the wonders of Seljuk architecture in Sivas. It's an open madrasa. This time we have an open example, an open courtyard, no dome at all. We have student cells, right and left. Between the student cells, we have ayvans. And dehliz, the entrance vestibule, turned into ayvan. Then we have 3 ayvans, 1, 2, 3 ayvans. And a central ayvan across the entrance gate. This part was demolished, recently restored. Central main ayvan, side ayvans, and the entrance vestibule like an ayvan altogether give us a cross pattern. Bakın, cross pattern, north, south, east, west, typical of 4 ayvan courtyard, adapted to madrasa architecture. This is an open madrasa. On the right of the entrance, here on the right, bakın, this is the section with a window like this. There is a masjid. Here we have a masjid. Then we have 2 minarets symbolizing this function of the madrasa, which is also a house of God, together with being a educational institution. On the left is a nice fountain. Bakın, a nice fountain. One of the rare fountains of Seljuk architecture. Another great portal. The name of the architect is inscribed as Kaluyan, the name of the architect, probably a Christian origin master craftsman, worked in the construction of this portal. But there is nothing Christian here, all details, and the architectural program is Islamic. It can be put in the tradition of Islamic architecture that influenced Christian architecture in the 10th century. Here we have then a designer of local minority groups creating a building in the tradition of Islamic architecture. How this happened, how he learned this tradition, which came to Anatolia from Iran and Syria. It's a question mark, of course. Probably he was given a program. Probably he was educated by people from Iran, Syria, Iraq, when he was in an earlier stage of his career. We don't really know. But what we know is that his surname gives us essentially Christian background. That's all. On the 2 sides of the entrance portal, we have 2 sacred trees. 2 sacred trees. The name of the architect inscribed in this monument. There are Quranic quotations right and left. The name of the architect is here on this portal, this section. Sacred tree, again with the eagle on the top. Here we have animals, again representing a tree named Vakvak tree in medieval mythology. Vakvak tree. Here on this, over this arch, we have 2 symmetrical trees with animal heads. This is a more naturalistic pomegranate tree. But here we have a mythological tree, Vakvak tree, which grows on the islands in the cosmic ocean in the east. This is the myth about the Vakvak tree. And on this tree, there are human heads, human bodies or animal heads speaking. When sailors reached, they faced with human beings sang on the tree, speaking continuously, or animal head. This is a mythological tree. But why? Why on the entrance gate of a building? It is the same symbolism I told you, the border, the limit, the border. Indian Ocean eastern islands are on the border between known and unknown. Known is in the west, unknown is in the east. It is the border between east and west. It is the border between the domain of sun and our domain. Then these symbols of borders crowd the portals. One of them is Vakvak tree. Vakvak Hayriye. Have you heard about this? Vakvak Hayriye. Istanbul, 19th century, huh? Vakvak Hayriye. During uprising, people were hanged on trees at Sultanahmet Park. Like, Vakvak tree with people hang. This is the idea. And this event named Vakvak Hayriye, the event of Vakvak tree. But originally, this tree has nothing to do with this Hayriye vakası yani. Here we have the interior of the Gök Madrasa. As I told you, Ayvan was demolished. Why I regard it one of the masterpieces of Seljuk architecture? There are two reasons. One is that this great portal, which is unique, which is made of entirely stone, entirely marble. Sorry, marble. Just entirely marble. And fine craftsmanship. Look at the details. Look at the details like this, and the contours emphasized by these protrusions. You see these thin lines, and how these different stones planned beforehand and put together so stabilized that it is almost impossible to take out something. Another reason is that we have a great proportional organization of forms, as you see. Arts are so nice. You see the proportions? Unbelievably beautiful. Beautiful. I will be dealing with architect Sinan, and you would understand. Maybe I will, if I remember, I will refer to this arcade sometime, some point. And in order to tell you that the background of architect Sinan is Seljuk architecture. He learned from Anatolia and came to Istanbul and reflected his knowledge of Anatolian background in Istanbul. This is a good case to remember. See these great arts. As students of architecture, you should appreciate this, really appreciate it. And the way this background is related to these apertures, organization of the arches like this. There is no need to introduce this second layer of arches. This is just for aesthetic reasons to create a window, but usually we don't have it, only in this case. But after earthquakes, a number of earthquakes, the shape of the arts changed, as you can notice out here. This is a photograph taken before the restorations. I suppose these are just precautions introduced to prevent, I don't know, these wooden structures to prevent collisions. But recently the monument restored, and the end product is something like this. I always find such restorations problematic. And in the end, unfortunately, this building suffered from a restoration process, which we don't favor. Unfortunately, the end product, as we can see, is like a Hollywood stage. Unfortunately, this happens in Turkey so frequently. Here we have another madrasa, this time from Erzurum. These madrasas are from the second half of the 13th century. A great portal with sacred trees. Pay attention to this facade. There is an integral organization in this facade. The way different parts interrelated with these cornices, you see, moldings altogether. There is a tendency to relate different sections in a single composition. This septunt appeared in the second half of the 13th century. The individual units now try to be a little bit interrelated on the facades, different than the previous case. A tomb was added later at the back of the main Ivan, which spoiled the integrity of the design, and asymmetry is created as such. This is a photograph taken from the courtyard towards the entrance piece. I never ask students, tell me the name and date of that monument and so forth. Then don't be afraid of seeing examples. It doesn't mean that I would be asking you, tell me about Divri Great Mosque, tell me about, or recognize this, name it, date it. No, my questions are not like this. I usually put slides and give the names and dates of the buildings and expect you to define, to describe, to compare. Then display of examples from different types shouldn't make you, how can I say, distanced from the course. This is just to make you understand more profoundly, with different examples, what I'm talking about. For example, when I say open madrasa, I display more than one example or enclosed madrasa as such. You understand? Okay. Here we have the answers. Oh my God, almost 5 minutes passed. Oh my God. Oh. Let me finalize the Çifteminare Madrasa. It is a four Ivan courtyard, double floored, you see. First is arcades with student cells. Second, arcades again with student cells at the back. And there are staircases leading to the top floor. Two-floored open madrasa. Two-floored open. For example, I can ask this. What is the type of this madrasa? It's open. You see it with Ivans and two-floored. I mean, it's so simple. Here we have the secretary on the entrance gate. This time we have two dragons from the roots facing upwards. I explained the reason why dragons are there. Birds and a great double-headed eagle with an Ivan at the background. Ivan is the gate, sign gate at the top. Then when we look at this, we have a vertical axis from underworld to the heavens. At the top is the gate, and the eagle is there with an Ivan at the back. If you reflect this on the building itself, add the horizontal axis, we again have an Ivan. Eagle is not there, but it is on the outside, on the portal outside. Anyway, here we have a vertical axis with the Ivan at the end. Then horizontal axis with the Ivan at the end is the same with the vertical axis with the Ivan at the end. In both cases, Ivan is the gate at the end of a travel. You advance, you go along a path and reach to the Ivan, which is the gate there. You start from the earth, you go up through the heavens, and you reach to the Ivan, which is at the topmost level. This is the gate to Empyrean. You understand what I mean? Or travel takes place on horizontal and vertical levels. One towards east, the other towards Alemul Gaib, towards Empyrean, towards God. And a building is at the junction, intersection of those two axes, vertical and horizontal. Okay, let's have a break for 10 minutes. We can meet at 10 to 12. Bye-bye. I can recommend a presentation by myself on the internet. You can go to the internet and check a symposium, Resilience in Digital Heritage. You can either entirely watch this symposium communications or go to the time 51 02 or 8 to 51 or 8. This is the time or my presentation starts, and you can watch what I see on symbolism of the Mukarnas and geometry altogether. You can find consists deliverance of my thoughts in relation to Islamic architecture in this presentation, if you are interested in the topic. Okay, let me share. Here we have the presentation on Seljuk architecture. During the break, I made some changes in the presentation. Here we have the slide for Madrasa section. I hope you can all hear me. Now I would like to speak on caravanserais. In medieval age, these buildings were named Han or Ribat. Ribat-ı Sherif. Ribat actually is an Arabic word for a military stronghold, a fort used in the early periods of Islamic expansion by Muslim armies. Later, caravanserai started to be used with the name Ribat. But Han also introduced, it's a Persian name. Han or Ribat together used. Caravanserai is a modern naming of Hans. Here we have a building from Eastern Iran, Ribat-ı Sherif. In Iran and Central Asia, Hans are of two sections, both open. This is the first section. You enter by means of pishtak, kind of portal, and reach to a corridor and to the first open courtyard with Ivans. Then another portal which leads you to another open courtyard with Ivans. Between the Ivans are rooms dedicated to the use of the traveling merchants. On the two sides of the main Ivan, and at the back of the Ivan is a domed room. On the two sides of this domed room are more specialized zones with inner central sofas and Ivans overlooking them and corner rooms. We understand that important people like emirs, even sultans, would stay in these sections with their entourage. Even in the late period, 19th century, these Hans became owned by people with money, investors, and they used these spaces. We also know this. This great domed room was a meeting hall, like in a palace, kind of reception hall. In this map, you see the Silk Road. Actually, Silk Road is not a single road leading from Anatolia to China. It is a web of communication. Thousands of secondary pathways existed, but usually we name it Silk Road, which was invented by a German scholar, İpek Yolu. And there is a great documentary film by a Japan team, filmmaker company. And its music become popular. Silk Road belgeseli, yani İpek Yolu belgeseli is the Turkish name, Silk Road documentary. These caravanserais or Hans in Anatolia were charity institutions. People would stay them up to 3 days without any payment. Many different functions offered. In some of them, you would find a bath even. It was very secure. At night, after sun gets disappear, these gates locked until morning, and we would go out and get in and provide any turmoil. And these Silk roads from China to the Middle East also connected to Europe. This is a map showing the communication network connected to the Silk Road. Then it was really between the continents, and Hans were very useful to provide secure shelters for the caravans traveling from one part to the other. Caravan routes Anatolia, different maps introduced. These are major routes from north to south, from Antalya to Sinop, and from Kütahya all the way through Konya, Kayseri, going to Aleppo, another one from Diyarbakir to Baghdad, and the third one from Erzurum to Tabriz, Iran, Syria, and Iraq. And from Antalya Harbor, you could reach to Egypt, Alexandria, and from Sinop to Crimea. From Kütahya, if you can see here on the right, you could go to Constantinople. Uç is the name of this frontier region between Byzantine and Central Anatolian Seljuk lands. Trabzon Rum Empire and Kilikyan Armenian state were part of this map. This great Han, sponsored by Alaaddin Keykubat, named Sultan Han after his title, contains two sections, one open, the other enclosed. But Han in Anatolia looks like a basilica in the enclosed section, which is different than the Han in Central Asia. In Central Asia and Iran, we don't have an enclosed section. Both sections contain central open courtyards. But here in Turkey, we have enclosed section. It looks like a transept basilica, probably due to this local building technologies, traditions of space, and the knowledge to construct stone walls, Roman tradition, introduced enclosed zones to caravanserai architecture. And here we have enclosed and open spaces. In the open section, there are stables underneath the arcades, and also rooms underneath these walls. At the corner is a bath, hammam. At the center of the courtyard is a nice masjid, a kiosk masjid, over 4 pillars. It is heightened from the surface, like a fire temple. It looks like a fortress, really, with corner towers, named turrets in English. And this image, which introduces an image of a fortress, altogether was for the purpose to create a secure zone in the mind of the travelers, traveling merchants, and important people who would find a shelter within the domains of a Han. The central dome of the enclosed section is covered by a pyramidal cap, which looks like a basilica transept dome, really. Then inspiration source is that. Then what we can say is that transept basilica adapted to a different building type, Han. Functions changed, but the general look of the building remained. Transept basilica, adapted to a Han. This is the front section, open courtyard with Ivans, remained the same. In this case, we don't see side Ivans, but in some others, you can. At the center, a kiosk masjid added in Anatolia. Heightens. You see, there are innovations, transformations. It's a really colorful scenery where we have a great architecture in which new cultural transformations asked for innovations in design, introduction of new forms at the same time. Here we have the bath section. In the bath section, we have a entrance piece, apoditarium, a dressing hall. Probably this also functioned as a dressing hall. Then this is the tepidarium, yani ılıklık. Apoditarium, tepidarium, and caldarium. Almost all parts of a typical Islamic bath introduced here. And even it contains a small halvet, a small special bathing room. Külhan was most probably outside somewhere here, Külhan. The place where they provided steam to the area of the hammam. Here we have a view from the courtyard, the kiosk masjid over 4 pillars. It's an ingenious idea, solution to the problem inserting a masjid in the body of the Karavansaray. In heightening it, you don't sacrifice space for a masjid, but you still have the masjid above these arches, underneath of which you could sit, find a shelter, shaded. Or you could go up through this staircase and pray inside. Inside is a mihrab, just a square, simple room with a vault above. That really reminds fire temples of Iran. A portal leading to the enclosed section. This is the view from the enclosed section. There is a circulation area. The central part goes right and left at the end, makes a T-plan, and also goes this way all along the walls, create this kind of a circulation zone on the left and on the right. Central part is heightened with a platform like this. Here you can see the platform at the center underneath these arches. Underneath these arches, we have a platform here like this. And there is a circulation corridor around this area. Above this platform, traders, people staying in the Han could sit and entertain themselves or sleep there. They could have mangal, fireplace on these platforms. Even in times when it is they needed space for their animals, they would take the animals inside occasionally, but usually stables are here. These huts were not used in winter. No. Until November. From April to November. In winter, these huts were empty. Why in these seasons? Because crops from the fields, in spring until the end of autumn should have been carried by the caravans, and they needed caravans and in these seasons. They stored goods for winter season in towns, and all through the months from April to November, goods traveled, goods transported, and stored in the towns. In winter time, these caravanserais were empty. This is the reason why we don't have fireplaces, permanent fireplaces in these great houses. On the arch on the other side, not here, the other side of the Kiosk Masjid, we have dragons like snakes, 2 dragons face to face, you see. In their mouths, between their mouths, there is a pearl, which is the symbol of sun. They aim to devour sun or moon. It is a symbol of sun and moon eclipses. They thought that during sun and moon eclipses, Actually, two dragons attempted to devour these, I don't know, heavenly bodies. One is star, the other uydu muydu? Neydi? Ay yani. Moon. So I don't remember really the word for this. Uydu. Anyway, here we have then two dragons face to face symbolizing sun and moon eclipses. Dash to the arch. Then we understand that arch is the firmament, sky dome, on which are astronomical beings, astronomical events take place. Symbolism of architecture then in this way can be interpreted by means of these motives associated with the forms. Two dragons attempting to devour sun and moon. Also, I told you that snake or dragon itself is a symbol of rain clouds, rain, circulation of water in the universe, then this circular form of the arch is appropriate for that. I should also say that dragon is carried by the Turks from Central Asia. Dragon was named Evren in Turkish, Evren. Evren means dragon. Ejder is the Persian equivalent, Persian, but in Turkish it was Evren. From Evren, from something that turns. Evren yani bir şey evren. Then dragon turns, rotates the heavens. The movement of the dragon is useful. It gives the first movement in the universe, rotating it. Evren then is a very important word in Turkish. We don't use it anymore for this purpose. Evren is universe, but there is something related to it. Evren, universe, universe in rotation. Evren, evriliyor yani. Evrim, evolution also related to that word. In the universe, we have a movement, circular movements, and life-changing, everyday life, evrilmek, evriliyor, evrim, değil mi? Oh my God, this is an interior from a Han in Central Asia, a drawing by Eugene Flanden. Here we have the central platform with people sitting and chatting, and the background corridors with horses taken inside sometimes, as I told you. Nice drawing indeed. People did not have furniture as we have today. Then spaces were multifunctional. I mean, spaces weren't dedicated to specific uses. For example, in the bedroom, a great master bedroom, we have a great bed, or in a guest room, we have a great table with sofas. Sofa in English means, great sitting places, chairs. Or children's room with tables to study and so forth. No, in medieval age, furniture did not exist. People sat on ground, on carpets, on couches, yani sedir. They used pillows. This provided multifunctional use of these spaces, or multifunctionality to the spaces, and enabled designers to be independent to design their buildings after schemes. It's a four Ayvan courtyard. This is a scheme imposed. If you don't go with functions in your mind, you can impose schemes onto your architecture, introduce hierarchies. This is an entirely different way of approach to architecture. Of course, how can I say, non-functionality originated from daily use of space, provided designers to be more creative in terms of introduction of schemes. But of course, this restricted proper use of spaces after daily functions. There's always a dilemma in world. You either attach functions to spaces, then sacrifice your schemes, philosophical, theoretical reflections in relation to cosmology, in relation to philosophy. You sacrifice them. You just go with these spaces with functions. Or you sacrifice functions and go with the cosmological notions. But let me tell you that in medieval age, as I told you, people did not ask specific spaces for specific functions because spaces could have been used differently. At daytime, in daytime, they would sit and eat. At nighttime, they would sleep, having their beds from the wardrobe, from the storage places, put on the floor and sleep there. They did not ask such specific functionality. Then that led to the imposition of schemes. Today, some designers are started to be against specific functions attached to rooms because it leads to economy based on consumption because you dedicate different functions to different rooms, then you create rooms unused all day long. For example, a bedroom is not used in daytime. You go there only nighttime and it's a spare in the house, a bedroom without a function all day long, and others. And some designers are against this idea. They attach multifunctionality to rooms instead of having single function rooms. And we should again rediscover the potential of multifunctionality, to create spaces as a realm, also to impose, to reflect our philosophies better, maybe. We should think about this. I put this slide just to introduce you another interior from Turkey this time, but Ottoman period. In Ottoman periods, Hans started to be furnished with fireplaces, as you can see in this example. A man lying on this pad, another one having heat from the fireplace here, another one sitting, another one on horseback. Altogether, this is a 17th century Ottoman manuscript painting, and gives us fireplaces added to the interior of Hans. In Ottoman period, we have Hans with fireplaces. And this is the picture. I would like to illustrate how medieval man used architectural space. This is an original 13th century painting. This is a drawing from probably 20th century or 19th century, but this is original 13th century miniature painting. You can see how they used architectural space, sitting on the ground, like sitting in a tent. They used architecture. Probably this is a tent. I don't want to say that this is really interior from a stone architecture or a building in stone. Probably a tent, but let me tell you that they used architectural space, the buildings themselves, in this way. Palaces. I would like to illustrate a palace from Konya. This is the one I already showed you. Only this tower remained. A kind of loggia with a nice view of the city remained. Here we have its remains drawn on paper in the 19th century and photographs from 20th century. It was in mud brick, unbelievable, but Seljuks did not sponsor ashlar stone palaces. They regarded palace as a temporary setting. Maybe they thought that every new generation should build her palace for themselves, and they did not much pay attention to the durability of the material. Instead, they preferred temporary settings, and their palaces are in mud brick or in sand or kilned or sun-dried mud brick, usually, or rubble stone, which are not really permanent materials. Here we have a console supporting a balcony, probably around this Ivan-like loggia. And drawings by Mahmut Akok to give you essentially this palace with the towers overlooking the city. They would look like this. Here we have another reconstruction of the palace kiosk with the Ivan on the tower and the walls of the Konya inner city, the citadel where this palace existed. And in Beyşehir, there is a summer palace on the shores of the lake. It contains two palaces, one grand, the other one small. I put this slide just to show you how Seljuks organize spaces in their palaces, very similar to Islamic palaces. Not maybe as grand, big as Khalif's Mishatta, but still they have the same organization of spaces on an axis. You enter by this gate, reach to a vestibule, then to a great vaulted room, a kind of inner courtyard, then an Ivan fronts you. But pay attention that this is a summer palace and it is a stop on the way from Alanya to Konya, and it shouldn't be a great urban palace. It is a small palace on the route, like a han, like a stop over the route which was used during travels mostly. They stayed here for a while, then took boats to pass Beyşehir Lake to reach to Konya. There is a great courtyard with storage rooms, a great bath discovered here recently. In the central part, we also have a very private zone with another inner enclosed vaulted room with an Ivan and side spaces. Even a toilet exists here and side room. This is the harem section. There, Sultan lived with his family. And next to the next to this Ivan, all enclosed by walls, there is a small divanhana, a room for very private meetings, a kind of administrative room. This is a typical Seljuk palace. Smaller palace follows the same pattern with a Ivan and side rooms on a central axis. This is the place where they put their boats, a dockyard. Here we have a nice plan of the same entrance vestibule, great room, vaulted, main Ivan, kind of audience chamber with a private divanhane. This is another Ivan here on the right, accessed by this gate with another vaulted room at the front. Both open to each other. There is no wall here separating those two rooms, and a toilet kind of wet space and rooms attached to this central part. This could be another divanhane as private room used by the Sultan, and chambers attached for the Sultan and his family. We don't really know, but this is a great land with many other buildings around. Maybe Sultan lived here alone and his family in other buildings, because many substructures discovered here in this land that belongs to 13th century. Here is a reconstruction, vestibule, inner courtyard with an Ivan, with the divanhane. On the right, you have another Ivan with the inner courtyard with attached rooms. Two sections exist. One is private, one is more public, a reception hall with a private zone with another Ivan, where Sultan entertained himself with his family members, accepted respects paid by the family members in the Ivan, or just sat there and entertained himself. We shouldn't think that official meetings took place in this section of the house. And a courtyard landscape organized around with the view of the Beyşehir Lake, which is one of the most beautiful lakes of Turkey. This is a reconstruction of the small palace, but totally hypothetical. We don't have any idea of the upper zone because building is destroyed and you could see. But at least you can get the plan of the monument from this substructure, the organization of the rooms altogether, the material, and even tiles discovered, one of the most precious tiles of Seljuk art. I spoke about these tiles before, with the nice representations of princes in hunting parties. Also some astronomical symbols between the symbols of four directions. Cross patterns, hexagonal tiles between cross patterns, symbols of sun. There is a theater in Aspendos, ancient city of Aspendos. What happened to this theater in the Seljuk period? This theater turned into a palace by the Seljuks. Look at this pointed arch. Entrance used by Romans changed into the entrance to a palace by the Seljuks in introducing this great pointed arch, and also this entrance piece, triconch kind of entrance piece, also rebuilt by the Seljuks. It is interesting, really, how Seljuks reused ancient buildings, especially around Antalya, can be illustrated by this example. And there are many other examples. Seljuks were very flexible. And when they needed a new building, if one existed from Roman period, they just adapted it, converted it. Or they built a new one from scratch, designed entirely new buildings for themselves. Very, very flexible, adaptive. And really, it is a very interesting period of Anatolia. I mean, Seljuk period. I would like to show you a number of tombs, mausolea, kümbet in Turkish we say, gumbat Farsi, from dome, kubbe. Kubbe, gumbat are the same. Here we have a good example, Nide Hüdavend Hatun tomb. It contains an octagonal shape with a dome, double sheltered dome. At the top of the dome, we have a cap. This is conical? Yeah, no, pyramidal. A pyramidal cap covering it. Made of ashlar stone, very durable. In mausoleum architecture, Seljuks preferred ashlar stone. They would like to commission permanent tombs in order to introduce an identity to towns and landscape with their deceased, with their family members, with their martyrs. I mean, this is a realm through which Seljuks introduce an identity to the country. Architecture of the tombs. Tomb architecture is not only functional as a realm to bury that. It has a symbolic function, in my opinion, which introduces permanency in terms of this notion of identity, Seljuk identity, Islamic identity to the land. Then really tombs are great in Seljuk architectural tradition with their forms and status. Here we have interior. This octagon in a way turned into a square, circular by means of these arches that leads to the dome at the top, a spherical upper zone, as you can see in this section. Seljuk tombs contained cryptas, as I told you maybe before. We have a crypta section here, where mummified body, they mummified their dead. Mummified body was placed. And these cryptas accessed by staircases leading down. They are subterranean chambers. On this we have symbols like harpy, female-headed bird, and others, sacred trees, abstracted sacred trees. As part of cosmological symbolism I have been talking about. They are protectors of the tomb, but mostly solar symbols, astronomical symbols. They have a past in ancient art. Siren is the name in ancient art of a female-headed bird. Siren, maybe you are familiar with Odysseus and his travels, during which he faced with sirens screaming. And this is a interesting case that shows us continuity of symbols from ancient to medieval age. Rosettes, sun and moon rosettes altogether give us essentials. When you look at this, axiality is more important than horizontal development. Then on this axial design, we have stages again. One stage between crypta and the walls, underlined by Muqarnas here. Another one between the walls and the transitionary drum, underlined by Muqarnas here. Drum is underlined by arches between the dome and the walls. Then we have stages leading to the top, and the building is organized on this understanding of stages on a horizontal pole. And also we have a development all along the walls. Each segment itself symmetrically organized in relation to the neighboring one. In a way, each segment has an individual design with the window at the center in this case, with just an open wall, but the same Muqarnas organization shared with the Art wall. And every tomb is different, almost totally different than the other, and Seljuk architecture demonstrated its creativity by means of tombs, because tomb is a sculpture-like building. And interior space is not much used. It is just a prayer masjid. It is appreciated from outside, and people pray from outside looking at this monument. And this verticality with the walls ornamented is more pronounced than horizontality and inside. Here we have nice Muqarnas arch with the harpy again, rosettes giving us astronomical bodies, you know. This is a kind of made in Turkish çığrı, they say çığrı, yani çark, gök çığrısı they say in Göktürk Turkish, gök çığrısı. Yani sky wheel, you know, the rotating heavens. The idea is that rotating heavens. Şöyle tam ters yaptım galiba, değil mi? Şöyle rotation is like this, contrary to or clockwise rotation. From up to down, from left to right. Here we have Döner Kümbet in Kayseri. Similar organization of this vertical axis in stages like this. And also every space is organized symmetrically in relation to the neighboring one. It is a circular building, but like the ones in Iran, we have those blind arcades turning the circular facade into an octagonal one by means of these lines introducing the contours of an octagon. Again, we have a aesthetic understanding in which geometry in contrast or geometrical designs in contrast, illusions and kind of varied design manifestation. Crypta is this zone underneath the prayer hall. Actually, even under this entrance gate, crypta is here. This is the subterranean foundation of the monument. At the entrance, we have two sphinxes this time, human-headed lions from Egypt, ancient Egypt. Sacred trees with double-headed eagles, symbols of the border, gray zone, shelter, beyond which is divinity, as I indicated many times. There is a program of decoration, as I told you, from earth to heavens, and also appropriate symbols attached. Nice, really nice. And also look at these arches on the conical cap. You know, underneath these arches is the middle section of those lower arches, and an asymmetry is deliberately created in order to break monotony. If they would have on the same line, there would be a monotony really created. These kind of details are important to understand the mentality of medieval designers. And this Mukarnas ring, it is fantastic, really, with a cap. You know, it is like a Mevlevi dervish sikke, the hat of a Mevlevi dervish. The body, human body, essentially is here, an anthropomorphism. As a cosmic axis, human body is an inspiration source, of course. And the entrance piece, crypt entrance later enclosed. There must have been a gate here, or underneath the earth, I don't know. Here we have the two sphinxes, and secretaries, and entrance piece like a mihrab. Inside is another mihrab. Güdük Minare is the last, I suppose. And another, I put these slides in order to show the variety of tomb designs. Now we have in the Güdük Minare tomb a circular substructure, a passage, a drum where Turkish triangles are, a minaret-like over, how can I say, upper zone with a conical cap. There are swastikas. This is the crypta, minaret-like central part, put in a square envelope. Look at it, a square envelope, a circular inner zone, connected with the square by means of these triangles, Turkish triangles. It is a fantastic design, really, again. So creative. Inside is a Mukarnas zone and an inner shell, a dome covered by another conical cap. And this is the last slide. As typical Seljuk tomb, what Seljuks did was to adapt a church form to tomb architecture. In this case, they took this church form, polygonal church form, and used it as a tomb. Look at it, how flexible, how tolerant, even in quotation marks, because tolerance is a modern concept. They didn't know what tolerance is. They were like they were. You know what I mean? They didn't care this kind of modern concept. Anyway, forget about tolerance. What they did, very, very, very practical solutions introduced. They were looking for images again, images of architectural forms. And this is appropriate. Centralized building, mausoleum, Roman tradition. Actually, in Roman tradition, we have rotunda, like the Dome of the Rock, I remember from the first lecture. And they used it as a tomb. So simple. So simple. Okay. Oh my God. But I would like to finalize today's lecture, and those who cannot follow might come back and watch at the video, because I will ask questions from this part as well. I mean, this today's lecture, and I might ask questions from bots as well. I will finalize it today because we need to catch our schedule. Here we have the just one example, I suppose. Just one example, and I will finalize. Hunat Hatun Külliye and Hamam here. On the right, you can see the drawing of it. Two sections, one for men and one for ladies. Both contain a dressing hall, tepidarium, and kalidarium. Dressing hall, tepidarium, and kalidarium. Kalidarium is the hot section. In the men's part, we have a cross plan for that. 4 Ivans. In the women's part, one of the Ivans is skipped. We have only 3 Ivans. Then it's a 3 Ivan kalidarium. In the tepidarium, in the women's section, we have a rectangular room. In the men's section, we have a small room for dressing. There's a preference for different rooms in different sections. Apoditarium, sorry, dressing hall. I'd say no. This is a tepidarium. Look, yani passage from the dressing hall to the kalidarium. Tepidarium, passage from the dressing hall to the kalidarium. Sorry for that. Confusion. Well, I must have tired. I must be tired. Anyway. Dressing call, tepidarium and caldarium. Dressing call, tepidarium and... Yani soyunmalık, ılıklık ve sıcaklık. Soyunmalık, ılıklık ve sıcaklık. You pass through these stages and reach to the hottest section. We have corner rooms. We name them halvet. And Külhan was here. This is a central bath, a great one, and it contains two sections. In the neighborhood baths, men and women would use the hammam on alternate dates, and there was not this distinction between female and male sections in a neighborhood bath. But in a great central baths, we have two sections usually, one for males, the other for females. This is a nice drawing of the same bath with the tepidarium, ılıklık, and kalidarium, dressing hall, tepidarium, kalidarium, and dressing hall for ladies, for men. This is the one with 4 ivans. This is the one with 3 ivans, as you can see easily. And the cross section. Külhan is also here in this cross section with the külhan, the furnace where water is boiled. Very simple. It's typical of Roman baths. Let me look how many people, around 7 to 8. Okay, thank you very much for being here until that moment. Any questions related to this lecture or to the examination you will be having on Saturday? You can send by means of chat. We use pictures side by side usually, değil mi Orçun? And ask questions, lead you make comparisons. We also have some fill in the blanks or kind of, var mı öyle bir şey? Fill in the
Hocam,
blanks yapmıyoruz artık.
yeah, we did in the past, but
Not now because of these kind of examinations. Yes. Bir örneğe bakarız sonra.
tabii.
Okay. Hatta bakayım şuradan da öğrencilere söyleyeyim.
Hocam,
Geçen-
last year we did 4 essay questions,
Geçen
2
sene
comparison and 2
onu istiyordum
small
işte.
ones.
Two comparison and
And 2 small but kind of essay kind of questions.
essay kind of questions. Yes, we skipped fill in the blanks kind of questions due to this pandemic conditions. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Nesin, Orçun, my students, being here, helping me, listening me. All they are valuable. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.